Freddie is one of those, you know that he's got some black in him, but how much?
How
What's
much?
going on here?
Are you asking me to strip Joe Rogan
Yeah,
right
what,
now?
what are you?
Dad's black, mom's white. Standard issue, pretty much.
Powerful combination genetic wise, right? You get the body of the black man, and then you get the mind of the white man all together in some strange combination.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go
One of
with
the strongest combinations of all time.
I would say so.
Yeah, you get the body of the black man, and then you get the mind of the white man. That doesn't, by the way, mean that black people don't have brains. It's a different brain. Don't get me wrong. But I'm saying is clearly black people have the superior bodies.
Right.
You got to be crazy to argue with that. Greatest athletes of all time, with, to a man, except for a few fucking Larry Birds in there, a few weird white guys that managed to figure shit out.
Right.
Other than that, I mean, let's get real. You know, they're the super athletes.
We're trekking down Jimmy the Greek territory right now. He was absolutely right.
He was dead right.
He was dead right. And
he was just a douchebag.
Yeah, he was just a douchebag. And it was just like, you know what? Everything he said you couldn't disagree with. It was like, yeah, it's just...
Well, here's my problem with it. It's not a bad thing. You're talking about a positive attribute. Why is it racist to say that black people are the superior athletes?
Right.
I mean, if you just looked at the numbers, the number of Michael Jordans and LeBron Jameses and those guys, those superior, super dominant athletes, very rarely are the white guys.
Blacks make up, what, 15% of the population, American population, less than that, and they make up 90% of the NBA.
Yeah, what the fuck,
500
man?
men in the NBA, come on.
Come on.
And the white guys are European.
Yeah.
You know, it's like...
those Russians. The Europeans, see, that's another thing. Europeans, like Russians are a different fucking breed than white people here.
Oh, yeah.
There's some hard motherfuckers and some serious athletes, too.
Oh, yeah.
Like, you ever see Karelin? The rest, but if you look at like greatest athletes of all time, there's only a few like Rocky Marcianos in the mix. A few guys that were like super dominant that were white guys.
Wayne Gretzky.
Yes, yeah.
But given a sport that was, dominated by whites, a Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah, and like look at their attributes. Gretzky was like very clever and an excellent skater, but like Rocky Marciano was known for being just ridiculously durable.
Yeah.
And just always in incredible shape, and would get a hold of you and eventually wear you down and blast you. So it wasn't like a Muhammad Ali where you couldn't even fuck with him. Like you were in front of him going, what am I doing even in the ring with Roy Jones Jr.?
Right.
It ain't about race. It's about boxing.
Sit down.
I just stood up.
Sit down.
One thing I understand. If you're rich, you're a rich nigga. If you're poor, you're a poor nigga. If you're educated, you're a smart nigga. At the end of the day, they still look at me as a nigga. And that's something that I understand.
Because of racism and those Egyptologists who came in the early in the 20th century, that they, if I'm understanding you correctly, that they changed reality. They rewrote what was previously documented history to tell the world that Africans didn't do what Africans had certified and validated through their writings and through their narrative that had been done. Is there proof? Can you give an example of sort of that sort of subterfuge?
Sure. Perfect example is James Henry Breasted, one of the foremost Egyptologists in American history. It was Breasted who founded the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago. Around 1919, Breasted wrote an incredible book that documented his travels in Egypt and described the ancient Egyptians as dark-skinned people with woolly hair who were not unlike the Nubians who live in Egypt now. Well, this book was called Ancient Times, and it was a favorite book of John D. Rockefeller. He read it to his children all the time. And then Rockefeller decided to fund Breasted, gave him $1.5 million to establish the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago. But he also had caveats with that contribution, in that in the second edition of Ancient Times, which was published around 1935, Breasted removed all references to the ancient Egyptians as being dark-skinned people, and he added a new chapter where he said that they were members of the Great White Race. And he described this area, the quadrant of the world where the Great White Race rose and developed everything that became a significant part of civilization. Now that's one example, but there's George Reisner, who excavated in Sudan, and so many others who saw the historical truth, saw that black people who have been marginalized in this country and around the world, who have been enslaved because Pope Eugenius IV said that black people had no souls. So people did not look upon us as people who created anything of value. So I can understand how racists would say, oh no, well, these buildings could not have been built by black people. They don't have intelligence. These black people could not have written these great scripts. So they were operating under a false system of white superiority. So when they were confronted with the historical reality, they suffered what's referred to in psychology as an identity quake. Cognitive dissonance. You know, they couldn't connect the dots, so they fabricated historical lies. And so the work that we're currently engaged in right now is to tell the truth. We are literally digging up the truth, and the truth speaks for itself.